Hi, everybody. Delighted you are joining us again for Dialogues, Uncover, and Define. Ignite the Embers. Love to thank the amazing Marcia.
Hi, everybody.
What we'd love to do is we're continuing a little bit of the Ignite from last week, thanks to amazing, really positive energy from Jackie Muller and America's Supermom, LaChelle Adkins. And Marcia, what did you feel like? It's interesting that we're doing this, and this is the third time. And how are you feeling about this and about Ignite? What helped inspire you to agree to Ignite the Embers?
Well, this is really exciting because one, I think what really ignited me, I was already ignited before, but what really ignited me was everybody's comments, the interactions, the dialogues, hearing what people had to say and us having to responding to what they're saying. So I think that really got me excited, as you saw in the last video. So, I mean, yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Well, I think it's great. I think, like you said, and we really want to thank everybody for continuing to share one word that we can have a dialogue about in our upcoming series. So we want to thank you all for your suggestions,
for
joining us, for inviting others to join us. And Marcia and I would love to introduce you to an amazing woman. And her name is Jackie Muller.
Woohoo!
And Jackie is a dynamo. You can see it from her comments if you haven't had a chance in our last episode. Welcome, Jackie. How are you?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Jackie, tell us a little bit, Jackie, about you and so everybody can discover how wonderful you are.
Well, my name is Jackie Muller. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of New York, and I have a family therapy practice. And I love the theme that you guys are presenting to everybody about igniting the embers, because I feel like my vocation is that I'm passionate about is igniting inside of people their true potential so that they can design a life that they want to live, instead of having one just prescribed to them by their experiences and people in their past and their, the society. So I think we could all use somebody in our life to help us ignite the embers and blaze ahead into our positive future.
That was amazing, Jackie.
Yes.
That was amazing. So how can we help you find others to help?
Well, right now, because of the situation that the world is experiencing, I've opened up a wellness lounge on Facebook. So every night, Eastern Standard Time at 7:30, I invite people to come in there. I come in there for the topic, the conversation, the craftiness. A lot of us are fiber artists, so usually if we're sitting, we're knitting or quilting, or something's going on in our hands that you can't see, like right here. We think of ways outside the box to be able to create wellness and to quell the anxiety that seems to happen just from living regular life. And now we have this going on, so people need it even now more than ever. So.
Yeah.
So
that is amazing.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Good. Welcome.
We're good. Welcome, America's Supermom. Tell us about wonderful you and how we can help you and what.
Awesome. Yeah, right now what I'm doing is trying to find ways that I could serve others in a more easy type of format. I just kind of had the idea of possibly having some telephone office hours for coaching certain times of the day, so that people can kind of, kind of similar to a hotline or something, because some people are not really comfortable being on camera, or maybe even people knowing who they are. So just kind of having more of an element of being anonymous so that I can kind of help serve, just a little bit that I could do, to help people, because I have just found here recently in my own household that a lot of my children who are teenagers to their mid-20s are suffering with not being able to sleep. Some of them are having nightmares, panic attacks, and different things like that. So just recognizing that there is a need and there is a platform for us to kind of coach people through some of these just, what seems like everyday coping strategies a lot of people don't have. So just trying to have that available, as well as opportunities for parents to come together and strategize on how to successfully juggle working from home and doing the homeschool situation. A lot of people are used to having that structure outside of home and following a particular schedule. And so now that things are kind of up in the air for a lot of people, it's a lot of pressure to go from possibly eating meals out or, getting some type of meal supplemented to where you're not doing all the cooking, to actually juggling maybe even cooking, doing your job, then changing your job because maybe, you were used to doing your job in a different aspect, but now that's online, so you're learning new apps and platforms. So for some people, that could be overwhelming.
Right. I love that.
One of the neat things about that, and we really want to thank you ladies for joining us, and we couldn't think of two more amazing first guests. It's a time where many of us are looking for rays of sunshine on days that don't always seem very bright. And, we were really talking about that in terms of igniting. And Marcia had this amazing, amazing question, which was, what ignites your reality? And we'd love to get your feedback about that, and just kind of to use that as a general outline to kind of help us get going. So feel free to jump in. One of the things you'll notice is our first episode, we had no video. We couldn't see each other.
Yeah.
The two of us were talking on top of each other. So Marcia and I promised to breathe. We promised to kick back. We may giggle a little, but we definitely want to hear your amazing pearls of wisdom about what ignites your reality.
Yes.
I can
go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah.
Things that ignites my reality, and I'm sure you can probably relate with LaChelle, is that once I became a mom, I realized that as a woman, I needed to be a role model. Before then, I think I was just kind of winging it, being a young person and winging it. So my motivation for all the things that I do, I think was ignited by the fact of becoming a mom. But then I also realized that you don't have to actually birth people into the world to feel that same level of responsibility.
It's true.
I then found myself wanting to help other people because I felt like I was fine doing the mom thing, but I saw other people that were maybe needing that type of a nurturing support, one that was encouraging, one that was helpful to them, realizing that we're all born with the gift inside of us to be whatever we want to be. We just need it to be ignited. And sometimes life can have different things happen that can overshadow or put out that fire, or even go to the point where someone needs someone to ignite it for them again. So I think what ignites my reality is just wanting to be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
And you've done that, sister.
Keep trying.
I think for me, kind of along the same lines, though, is the ability to be authentic. So for me, a lot of my history has been competition, marketing, business, and just, the best man wins, and, it's all reward based. And so just the transformation that has happened in my life is being able to be approachable and to resonate with people and to connect with them. And so that has changed for me in terms of being authentic. So the ability to distance myself from the roles that I play and not feel like I am that role or that role defines me, just recognizing that, hey, you know, if I am doing a job as a coach, if someone gives me feedback, they're giving me feedback on a role, not on who I am as a person, you know.
That's right,
so
yeah.
the ability to kind of break away from a lot of different areas and to be real with people where even now during this pandemic, not perpetuate this perfection and idealistic thinking, but helping people where they are so that you can help more people where they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are confused. They don't really know where they are, because I was telling the ladies before we went live, I left the house for the first time in 3 weeks, and I feel like I entered the twilight zone. And I think if I'm feeling that way, other people are probably feeling the same way. Shut down. It's almost like a snowstorm without the snow, you know?
It's true. Yeah.
I think that people are trying to redefine what is their reality right now, and with the idea that it's going to be temporary, but it may be an extended temporary time. So we're definitely getting a lesson in trying to be flexible and more community minded. And I think programs like this are important because it's important for people to hear how everybody else is experiencing something similar. There's a global similar emotional need right now for support. Oh,
absolutely.
Melanie, you're quiet.
You're muted,
so,
Melanie.
Mel, you're muted. Sorry.
I like being muted because the phones are ringing, and even though the phones are muted, I have two phones here. So one of the things that I love about doing this is trying to stay in contact with the people who are watching us live on Facebook in Illuminations groups. And it's actually a really good thing that I'm muted. I love it. But definitely want to welcome Denise and Jessica and Christopher, who are hanging out with us today as we're muted. I think the thing about support is, I think the Embers part is important. I'm learning at this time to guard my embers. The sun's out because we're here now, and it was one of those really gray days. So I think the part of saving some fuel, whether it's finding time with meditation or with prayer or with reaching out to really good friends. I didn't feel many embers this morning, and hanging out, at Coffee with Chris. I'm becoming addicted, Chris. I think when the world returns to its new state, whatever that is, I think I'm going to insist on Coffee with Chris. But I think that need to guard your spark. Wherever it comes from, the same way we try and safeguard and protect our family, our friends, our faith.
It's true.
I think I'm learning, when we were kids, we used to catch those fireflies, the lightning bugs. I love that, They would just light up the sky during the really warm weather. And I think that's kind of what I'm feeling like now, like almost like we need to save a little bit in a jar for when others need the spark. And really grateful to some really amazing people, yourself included, for sharing their sparks. As a sibling, I'm learning too to communicate differently with our family. I haven't seen my parents in person in about a month now, and what I'm loving is my brother and I are making time to help each other safeguard our sparks. So I think that reminder, as you're checking in, whether, and my phone's ringing with a friend who I haven't spoken with in 3 years. And she called the other day wanting to know how my parents were. And I hadn't seen them. So I didn't have the answer. I had the phone answer, but I didn't have the I see you answer. So I think part of the Ignite the Embers is coming also from our vision. You know, somebody had suggested and said it at the beginning of this, that it's kind of like all 5 of our senses have to be awakened for us to be fully present, whether we're serving, whether we're receiving, whether we're sharing. And I found it interesting because usually I would return the call quicker, you know, but I needed a bit. And for me, actually, it's been about 2 weeks. I didn't have the answer to the question. Somebody was saying that the other day, and I really appreciate it. I think it was LaChelle, actually, with your kids. And maybe it was on Coffee with Chris where you were talking about what happens when the question comes and we don't have the answer, you know?
Sometimes I think we need to model for other people what we do for ourselves when we don't have the answer to something. It may be a practice that helps you to kind of settle your mind. It could be that you go and you search up information. Now that we have so much at our fingertips, that's relatively easy. It could be that you talk to someone that you trust, you know. It could be finding a journal and just jotting down all the things that you're questioning until, again, the mind settles and sometimes the clarity comes right off the top of the pen. You know?
So we're in uncharted territory. So the whole thing of just thinking that we're going to have all the answers, that definitely is not true.
So as we talk about embers, Marcia needs a bonfire. You know, it's the blowtorch, and it can occasionally be a world. It reminds me, I was talking with a friend about it the other day. We were talking about brands, and people were talking about having a fine line between sharing their business and how they help others, and not necessarily feeling motivated to do so. They didn't want to be intrusive. But I really appreciate it because Marcia needs her fuel now, her answer now.
Yeah, I do.
And you're forgetting that we have a chat on the screen.
It won't let me. It won't let me do it. It won't let me do it. I can't do it because
it's an iPhone thing. We're going to keep moving.
You mean Mac? Yeah, go ahead. Just keep going. I told you keep going.
One of the things that you said about like igniting the embers, and now like people's embers are maybe at a low or a flicker. But I think now more than ever, people that have businesses need to like lean on each other and bounce ideas off of each other and be innovative and dare to be the one that stands in the arena, not the ones that are on the sideline making fun of everybody who's doing things like this. We're going to be clunky. We're going to have technology issues. But you know what? Whoever who's watching this kind of criticizing it, let's see your video, you know? So
one of the things I love is we've got another question, which is, do you find that your best answers are in the morning or before you go to bed?
That's good. It depends on the question.
I
like
like
with
that.
Productivity, I think. But I don't know. Sometimes I get productivity answers before I go to bed too. But I think most of my productivity, strategy are more in the morning. And then things that are kind of reflective, you know, where as it comes to like positioning and leverage and that type of things are kind of at night. But that was a good question.
That is the amazing Christopher Knight. We're going to have to continue that with Coffee Time with Chris. He's full of amazing questions. What would you say, Jackie?
I think that we can't leave it to haphazardness. We need to like be intentional and on purpose with tuning in. So for me, if I want to tune into a higher level of like conscious that's within me, and outside of us, whatever religious orientation somebody may be, I need to settle that. Like, I got to go here. I got to do this. I got the endless chore list going that, before you even put your feet on the floor. I think we need to, one time I heard prayer is putting a request out there. Meditation is listening for the answer. And I think
I like that.
we need to meditate more, which means quieting the mind. Maybe you put some music on. I like my journal. I like to write until my thoughts settle. And then I think that the best answers come from the settled mind, letting it come slowly and consistently and authentically, to use your word that you used before. And also, like that still small voice can't be heard amidst all the chaos and clutter of our minds. So whether it's in the morning or it's before bed, I think you should tune that channel in to listening to that higher power,
Yeah. That's I use journaling. I do like journaling, and like sometimes I just get this influence, that I'm like, oh, let me just write it down real fast. You get these things. So I have like these, I'm not going to lie. I had to steal Melanie's idea, because she's the one that was like, oh yeah, I use notebooks, and then she sent me these books, these journals that I have, and so I've been using. I was like, I admire you so much. I wish I could do that. So I would start using the books. I start using the journals.
Melanie,
I was so
you are
excited.
something else. Can you hear her and we can't?
We can all. I can definitely hear her. I think the interesting thing is,
it's weird.
You're gonna laugh. After I answer the last question, I'm gonna show you Marcia's question. I believe that what's happening is, as Jackie says, it's about tuning in. And I think that answers come when I stop asking the questions. So for me, it's kind of in the peace of the middle of the night. If I think about a question maybe and nod off and go to sleep, I'll wake up in the middle of the night feeling like I've got a different answer. Or maybe it's in the peace. I find when Jackie's saying, for me, maybe it's more than settling. In a moment of peace, the answer will pop in. From the journaling perspective, I have 5 journals nearby. I use green journals for anything that is going to generate.
I like that.
I use a blue journal for something that needs to simmer for a little bit. I've got a red journal for something that's hot. I have an orange journal for, let me save it for later when I really need some inspiration. And then I've got always just a loose pad that'll have an idea or a note on it. I laughed because we always, it's part of, it's plain, there's nothing on it, but it's part of, as we're purging and cleaning our beautiful houses, we find every loose pad that is possibly around. And I carry different pads for different things. I think the answers thing was great. And another one of, I think Chris's great question was, I found that if I meditate before I go to sleep, so often the answers come while I sleep.
Oh, yeah.
And that keep a note next to you.
Oh, yeah.
And wake up in the night to jot down the answer to my question. I believe after I ask Marcia's question, miraculously, LaChelle will be able to hear you.
I think so.
And if not, Marcia, at about minute 28, you will find the answer. Almost 29, you're going to find the answer to your question on the replay. So write down a little note that here's your question, and write down to listen for LaChelle's answer. So Marcia's question was, LaChelle, when you stated that you distance your roles, how do you keep your embers ignited, distancing your roles? And do you ever get burned out
from doing that?
Yeah, so before I didn't distance my roles, I would experience a lot more burnout. One of the things that I think happens when you attach your role to your worth, you invest in something that is, it's not a shared vision. So, for example, if I am concerned with my kids getting on the honor roll, right, and so I attach the outcome of, that we are believing for them to get on the honor roll, and I think, my value and worth is attached to if that is accomplished or not. Well, the first thing is, it's really not within my control. Now, I can make sure they get their homework done. I can make sure that they have all the supplies, but they have to do the work.
Yeah.
So when you experience burnout, what happens is you have a mindset of thinking, I want to help this person, and so I'm doing this to help them. And so in that aspect, you are trying to accomplish something that may not be successful because they're skipping out on doing the work themselves. So when you distance your role, then we come together and we say, okay, you want to get on the honor roll. All right, so what are your grades now? We have a discussion, we have a common goal, and then we strategize on what they can bring to the table. So, my obligation is, okay, I just need to make sure you have the supplies. If you got projects you have to do, that you get to school on time, that you go to bed on time. Those are the things that I can help with. But you have to actually do the work. You're in class. You got to take the notes. You got to do this. So that way, both parties are invested. And if something doesn't map out right, then we can look at some of the things that we're doing, tweak it, and then come together and figure out how we're going to change. So it's the same thing like a coach for basketball. So you have a basketball coach, and you guys are strategizing, watching film, right? Your goal is to win the championship. But during the game, the coach is on the sidelines. You're not going to be saying, hey, coach, should I shoot this, take this shot? Should I block this person? You're going to be empowered to play the game. After you've done timeouts, whatever, you strategize still, but you are investing your part that you could play in order for that outcome to come to fruition. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's how you avoid the burnout.
Yeah, strategize. Yep. That's awesome.
You guys are hearing each other now. That's great.
Can you hear me now, LaChelle?
I still can't hear.
She still can't hear me. Yeah, that's not.
Can you hear?
I could hear her. I could always hear her, but she can't hear me.
Can you hear her too, Jackie?
Yeah, I hear her. I hear her.
We hear
That's
each other.
weird.
We actually know. We said the first time we had a technology issue.
Right.
And we said in this time of overuse of technology, of connections, technology issues are going to continue.
Yeah.
What I think is happening.
It's because I'm on the phone. You guys are all on computer. That's what
I'm on my laptop, but you can still hear them. But she can hear them.
I like that. I like what LaChelle said about that. Like, the roles. It sounds like you're in that role of guide and step aside. So you're not necessarily distancing your role. For me, I am ignited by the roles that I have, but I don't feel responsible for actually carrying out all the tasks of each of the roles. I feel like as a parent, you guide and step aside. As a counselor, coach, therapist, whatever, you guide and you step aside. You don't get burnout if you take care of yourself and you don't feel like you're the one that has to be responsible for everybody else's outcomes. You're just a part of the puzzle. You're not the whole puzzle. Together, we all kind of work on our individual pieces to make the whole. So I think that, for me, when I feel like I'm trying to take on too much and my embers are kind of feeling a little threatened, that's when I step back and do self-care. It all comes down to really taking care of yourself. Your roles don't tend to have the ability to put out your embers.
That's true. Well, see, sorry, go ahead, Mel.
I was going to say one other thing with that. A lot of people kind of use the term guide. You know what I mean? So, that happens a lot with coaching. I just happened to have an interview right before here. But I think for me, I recognize that that role is it's always in transition. So because you're always evolving. So like, let's just
Mhm.
say the whole thing with the kids and the honor roll. Well, their actions may guide our approach, or something I'm doing could guide the approach. So, for example, let's say that I just don't have a good routine. The kids aren't getting up early. So something about what I do may prompt us to do something else or something they do. So the roles of who the guide is can change because you're concerned about the outcome. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, I mean, in that aspect, you're always listening, you're always learning, and it's not
Mhm.
so sugarcut. I mean, cookie
Yeah.
cutter, because
Yeah.
you have to allow for people's personalities to be different. So for me, I could say, oh, well, this is it. You need to go to bed at this time and that. That may not work for that child. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
It's
They might
true.
have a
That's
different
right.
style. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of be like, the guide might be them. And, I have to come out of my comfort zone and say, okay, well, this is totally different. Let me do some research and figure out how this is going to work, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think
That's
that the other part of that is that when we're talking about this, the process of fuel and what lights you up, is that you
Mm-hmm.
never know whether you're the person getting the kindling, you're the person lighting the match, you're the person tending the fire,
Mhm.
you're the person sweeping away the ashes. I think it's a reminder that sometimes everybody's got a role in the process,
Right.
and a matter too on times that we have to understand everybody's got their individual ignition switch
That's right.
that motivates you,
That's right.
that sparks you, that will help you take a step.
Mhm.
Everybody, and that may change. That one day, as LaChelle would say, she's the guide or the leader.
Mhm.
One day, maybe it's a different child who's the guide or the leader. Maybe it's somebody different. And I think that difference of the changes in roles or positions, just like we would change which seats we had if we were sitting around a fireplace
Mm-hmm.
or a fire pit or a campfire, or whether you're standing off in the distance. I
Mhm.
think it's a matter, like Jackie said, of what's your settler's view, what's your explorer's view, and how you approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the whole thing, too, is a lot of the individuality comes in the self-care,
Yeah.
because I look at every
Yeah.
collaboration as, there is something that I'm bringing to this collaboration. So it's my responsibility to be proactive in what is going to allow me to be the best version of myself in this
Mhm.
collaboration. So all the work when it goes to the ego or whatever, that kind of work I do on my own, so that stuff can be kind of left at the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, we're on spring break right now, so this is why I have a lot more flexibility. But next week, they may be back and forth over projects on the phone and, or on the computer doing their work. And one of the things that I feel that we have to be proactive is like, I have never really been in a position to where I allow my outside environment to interfere with what role I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
playing at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's just like, if you know that your kids eat at a certain time or whatever, and they depend on you for that, well, then don't schedule a meeting at that time. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh, sorry, I'm late. I had to feed the kids. It's like, people, you set a precedence for your behavior and actions based on what you decide to do. Because a lot of times people don't have any expectations. You put them on yourself.
It's true.
And so then you overpromise and underdeliver when you really didn't even have to say anything. Because, see, I have a lot of leeway, right? Somebody could say,
Mhm.
I could always say, well, I don't know, my schedule's tight now. I do have 12 kids. I could always use that. However, I have time blocked in such a way that my kids understand, hey, I don't care how many of it is of you guys. Y'all can find something to do while I'm over here working, okay?
Yeah.
And they will respect those boundaries if you set them up. But if you don't, this is how people kind of fall into that trap of, oh, I'm trying to adjust and doing all this. Well, if it's a challenge, scale it back. If you can only work an hour a day, right, doing something online, you may get more done in that hour than trying to say that you're at work from 8 to 5 and you're back and forth with your kids. You see what I'm saying?
I like that the word that you used, setting boundaries. I always tell people, like, setting boundaries is not only for other people. You have to set boundaries for and with yourself. So for other people and with yourself. So overextending yourself and saying yes when you mean no, that's going to lead to burnout. Doing things you're not skilled enough to do, that's going to lead to burnout because you're going to spend the rest of the afternoon criticizing yourself, and if you don't have boundaries with other people, they're just going to kind of come on in and take over and expect you to continue to do things that maybe your role doesn't require you doing. So I think that goes whether you're in the workplace, whether you're in a relationship with an intimate partner, whether you're with your family. It doesn't matter. We all have to remember to identify what your boundaries are and where you end and the other person begins.
So, you ladies,
that.
this was,
that's one of the things that I really
me.
appreciate about Melanie, because she meets a lot of people and connects people. And she'll say, hey, I'm not the technology person, but I'm going to tell you somebody who is, and she does that. And so we have to get in the habit of that. I think with a lot of people, depending on the industry that they've been in, they attach a lot of worth to being able to have an answer for everything. So it's like somebody will say something that's like, oh, I know somebody who does this or whatever, because it's something about that social currency. But once you're in a place to kind of know what your zone of genius is, and, to me, I get a release when I can pass somebody off to somebody else, because it's like, I don't need another thing in my basket, right? So it's like, let me go ahead and introduce this person, because that way the momentum, and only thing you've done is introduce somebody, but somebody's like, wow, what a connector. Isn't she nice and all this? And it's like, hey, I just know what I can do, and I'm not afraid to share. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I could piggyback off you all day, because I like that zone of genius word. Is like, right now, nobody has a zone of genius about what's going on. And I've been telling people that all day. Is like, I'm hearing you, and I can tell you this, that I know probably about as much as you do about what's going on in the world. All I know is that we can stay together, keep talking about it, support one another. And as soon as I find out information that I think is helpful, then I share it with people. I tend to share not the doom and gloom stories, because we want to ignite the embers, right? We don't want to put them out going, oh my God, did you see what's going on over here? We want to be like, there's these stories of hope, and there's these stories of recovery, and there's these stories of brave people doing wonderful things. And those are the things that I think will ignite people. And we don't have to have a zone of genius to do that. We just have to share that type of information with the people that are scared right now. I like zone of genius.
But see, I think like what you're doing, even like you're knitting, right? See, people minimize a zone of genius. To be a leader in the midst of chaos is a zone of genius. So you may not have all the answers, but if you have a skill to be flexible with change, you're a leader. You're an influencer. So I love what you're saying about stories of hope, but this is the time where people need some sound wisdom, right? I was listening to this one podcast, and this guy was saying, I'm not concerned about investing with somebody who looks like they have all the answers. I'm concerned about somebody who can be a leader when things get messed up. because every time you have a business plan or you have a tech or strategy you're going to use, you're going to be challenged by that. So you don't want somebody who is formula focused, because in the event if there's an obstacle, they don't know how to move and pivot, right?
Right.
So the fact that you can move and pivot makes you more valuable than somebody who's holding the formula, because you're able to trailblaze and create that. So for that, and that's what calms people, because people, they don't even know what your plan is, but it's like, you know, she knows. I'm going to get behind her because she can knit, and I'm sitting up here trying to figure out how I can go to bed and get a good night's sleep. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So those are things that we have to kind of redefine what a zone of genius is, because being an influencer and having a platform where people are listening is vital territory right now, because there's so many people talking, but are they talking and really making an impact?
Right.
Or are you going to say something, Melanie?
I think what you're reminding us is that at times we have a voice that we're not comfortable sharing. At times we have a perspective that we're not sure how valuable it is. One of the things I totally love about last week was I could listen to the three of y'all like talk all day. I would really enjoy it about different things. Jackie and I connected, and we rarely have a chance to connect. One of my favorite people on the planet. What I think is you're reassuring us that in the ignition, there may be what others perceive as leadership. We don't necessarily see ourselves as leaders. I had a conversation with a friend about this last week. I didn't really have a personal definition of leadership. And a bunch of us applied for a leadership program that's local to many counties. So we applied for Leadership Orange. And at the time, what I loved was three of my really close friends, we were all applying at the same time. And we figured out the gentleman who was inviting us to apply, he was brilliant. He had used subliminal programming. He would ask you, and then he would stop. When he stopped asking you, you're like, oh, he doesn't want me anymore. And that was when you would apply. And someone's got their sound on.
Not me.
I turned it off. I just turned
I
turned it down.
think that what happens with the leadership is that what I found in the process of the program was he wanted a definition of leadership. And here it was, write an essay and make it a couple of 100 words. And what I loved was Chris, who you met in Enwin. Chris, I'm the teacher's kid, but Chris answered her questions, thought about them, and put her questions in before any of us. Another girlfriend, she wanted to think about one or two questions. She felt they were challenging. A really good friend who I've had some time to spend a lot of time with recently, online and on the phone. And the third person asked me, how are you answering this specific question? And I'm the teacher's kid who likes doing homework. I had not looked at the questions. I was waiting for what I call a writing moment, you know? Mm-hmm. And I try and wait. I really pick carefully when I sit down and write. And then all of a sudden it just floods out and it keeps coming and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't shut her up. Mm-hmm. But that's why I love the fact that there were journals around me. But I think internally, we don't always see ourselves as leaders. Christopher and I have been talking quite some time about the word connector. It's not a word that I use about myself. You know, I really appreciate it because another friend came up with a word that feels more like me. But he's like, your process of connection is part of what makes you appear to be a leader in other people's eyes. But then we really talked about it. And it's just like the word coach, because I avoided that for such a long time. I didn't want to be called a coach. I was allergic to it. I felt it was really crowded. I wasn't looking for certifications. I just wanted to help people and make the world better. It was simple. But I think what he really helped me understand was underneath it, to me, it's about collaborations. And that's what I hope happens, so that people build a relationship that helps them transform, change something, improve something, plug something in. Because if we don't get that, that inspiration. Yesterday, I talked with somebody who I've never had a face-to-face conversation with. I saw her as a keynote speaker. And what was really interesting to her was I described a picture. First time someone put a mic in my hand as a business professional, and I wasn't afraid to use it. And she laughed because I said, yes, somebody took a picture, and I kept looking at it because it really didn't look like me. And somebody shared it with me because they said, Mel, you looked lit up. We don't see ourselves that way. In this picture, I look like this girl's on fire. I had a question. I had to raise my hand. I would never have asked anybody for a microphone, but I knew this woman had such valuable information and nuggets. And I think the part under the leadership is we have to discover if we're willing to show up as that person, whether it's for hours or minutes. I love Jackie's comments in our dialogues, Uncover and Define, Ignite, because Jackie was typing away and they're all in caps. It was like she was feeling it. She's like, it's in caps. I'm not going to bother going uppercase, lowercase. She was just typing away. And I think in her, in those needles, is that same fire. I think we see it when we see her at face-to-face networking events. We see it when she speaks to us in this wonderful, gentle voice, and she's smiling this beautiful smile. I want to thank you all three, because I'm reminded of Ignite. Thank you for helping me find Embers. Thank you for helping share Embers today. Share energy with people, with letting your lights out to play with other children. So we feel like well-supported toddlers as we take new steps, as we take first steps. I can't believe that Marcia says, LaChelle cannot hear me.
She cannot hear me.
I think that's crazy. I can hear all three of you guys.
She's the only one.
I think what will happen is when we do the watch party on Saturday at 3, or when Marcia does the premiere on her page next week, you two need to make a date so you can type back and forth all the different things that you would have said to each other. We're not kicking you out, but before we leave each other, what's something that we can help you with as you're igniting the embers in your own lives and for others?
Well, I think something that you said, Melanie, is like igniting the embers and leadership. And I think of it as like broadening the scope of awareness of what it takes to be a leader. And I do have a young leaders group that I run. And one of the things I define for them, the leader's not always the person at the podium with the microphone. It's the person doing that. It's the person doing technology. It's the person that came up with the idea.
Absolutely.
There's so many leaders. It takes so many of us to kind of harness our brilliance and step up to the plate and kind of come together, all these little embers together until we get the little fire blazing again. So I think, when you help other people, you're helping me, because I feel that we're all part of a collective of people that want to just help the world around us, and hopefully they help. And then, we'll just see a better place after all this. I think this is nature's way of pressing pause for us all to reflect and then kind of pick up the momentum and come back together and just be a better community altogether. So just keep doing this. This is great. I'll keep coming back to the dialogue box and chatting.
Yeah.
We love it, and we appreciate it. Go in, LaChelle.
I was going to say, for me, it's just platforms to really be able to share with people. One of the things that I've just been very passionate about is opening the floor to have a dialogue such as these, because so many people have the pressure of feeling like, I don't have a safe space to remove this mask and get to the root cause in order for them to live a more fulfilled life. So any platform that I can come just ask a question. If you want me to just ask it, nobody else is saying anything. I'm all there. So I love that opportunity to be able to have that dialogue with people.
And Mel, you?
I think I want to remember in this time that underneath all of this, I was really reminded by what's been happening for the last month to kind of share peace. That underneath the ember, underneath the fuel, there's peace. There's a moment when we just need, as Jackie would say, whether it's settling ourselves, we need to embrace the stillness.
Yep.
Somebody asked a couple of weeks ago, what was I doing to fill my time? And the person who asked, I didn't feel my time was empty. Whether it was filled with meditation or prayer or checking in or working or dreaming or letting something that was in one of these journals out, or whether it was somebody popping into my head to pick up the phone to call. And I think the reminder underneath this, I think we need to treasure the stillness. We need to treasure the peace. I feel in terms of the embers and creating dialogues even, that was a little bit the calm before the storm. There's a song that I love and I'll have to play it later. But it's a song that always makes me cry. It's a Kirk Franklin song. And the song is "The Storm Is Over Now."
Oh yeah, I love that song.
And it's a song as I search for peace. As I search for peace, it's a song that leads me to it. I think also the music, whether it was watching Country Music Awards the other day, and stopping to replay it and discovering a new amazing song by John Legend and Kane, which, will teach us how to apologize a different way, how to say I'm sorry. I started a new playlist on YouTube. It's called Tears. I think that reminder under the peace to let yourself experience, just like I'm treasuring inspiration, I now have made a space for intense emotion. And as Jackie saying, it's got to settle, it's got to balance. But what does it mean to you, Marcia?
I think it's more not looking at yourself as like during this time as like failure, or any of us looking at ourselves like that. And to piggyback kind of off of you and Jackie, it's about that self-care and taking care of yourself and embracing that quietness. Because right now, when we had jobs and everything, when a lot of people had jobs going on, it was hard. I'm sure it was hard for a lot of people to get quiet and to take care of themselves, So I feel like that sense of having that sense of peace, and like you said, Mel, and that quietness is imperative for all of us to just sit and just take a few moments and just listen and meditate and just hear what the next direction is, because regardless of whether we want it or not, change is coming. Well, it already is here. So we can either go with the flow with it, or we can try to fight against it, which is going to be pretty painful, if you fight against it. But I think it's like the self-care thing and realizing, just embracing that peace and that quietness and just the self, embrace yourself. So I think that's where, I feel that's what it means to me. And guarding that that ignition, those embers igniting, just being, I don't know, guarding those so that they don't fizzle out all the way. You don't ever want to get to the point to where it gets like they're completely gone, so it's like just taking care of yourself in the midst of all this, what's going on in the world. So.
Really want to thank you, lovely ladies, for joining us.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
And for enjoying joining us to ignite the embers.
Yeah.
Marcia and I were so overwhelmed by your wonderful ideas.
I know you had some
of what our next topic is going to be. But the one thing that we've discovered is that we want to continue the Ignite theme for the month of April.
Mm-hmm.
So join us again on the 16th at 3 p.m. if you're live in Illuminations groups. Join us again as we continue our series, which is Dialogues, Uncover and Define. And we're gonna settle in a little bit and think of what the next Ignite step is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just as we do, and as we have a chance to kind of check in with each other, and really, I love watching premieres on Marcia's The Brand Naked Agency page. And we've been having our watch parties inside Illuminations groups for talented entrepreneurs. But we really want to thank you, wonderful, amazing ladies, and all of our listeners for joining us as we try to light things up and continue to appreciate you just for all of the inspiration and the fuel that you're bringing to us. But really, we cannot thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was
welcome.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.